and welcome to Culture on I-24 News. I'm Udit Grober. Thank you for joining me. Coming up on the show today, we'll talk to photographer Illia Yefimovitch about his new book. We'll visit a film festival dedicated to the Palestinian nakba. And hear how big brands recently angered indigenous Mexicans. Illia Yefimovitch is an Israeli photographer of Russian origins. His new book, titled Once Upon a Time There Was a Light so bright that no one could see, captures moments and people both in Israel and Russia in an attempt to define the photographer's identity. Very happy to welcome Ilya back to our studio. Thanks for coming in again, Ilya.
Thank you very much for having me, Oded.
So the book, as we said, contains images from Israel, from Russia, more specifically from the West Bank as well. Why these places? What connects these places?
Well, the attempt in my photography is an attempt to define myself as an artist, as a photographer, as a person who lives in this location, to understand the connection to the roots I have here, to the roots I had in Russia, to understand how can I be useful in terms of my work, how can I better define or show people, the viewers around me, the work and the places and the feelings I have for them.
Okay, and what did you look for in each place? Did you go, when you went out shooting in Israel, did you have a specific thought in mind of what you wanted to get there? Or you go out and you shoot whatever speaks to you?
Well, the project started a few years back, as the first step to it was to try and define a sort of map which is gonna help me choose the places to go to. Okay. The definition of these places were chosen by me in Israel and the West Bank as a news photographer who travels a lot to different locations, places that I think are sort of milestones or important places for me personally, right, or in the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or in the Israeli state, or any other historical importance.
And what did you find when you went out to these places?
Well, I was trying to find, I guess, myself.
Any luck?
A reflection
well, you
of
were
myself.
Here and you brought yourself.
The book is here and I'm talking about it, so I guess I guess, well, it's a never-ending project for me that's going to go on and on and on, and this book is just a sort of a spot on where I am now, I guess. But in general, I guess that in many places that are really talk to me, I continue to go back there. And, for example, the people in this book are very different. For example, here is a picture of my father that is also a part of this, maybe sometimes unknown people or undefined people for me. It's interesting to find this sort of connection between these places and
that's what I wanted to ask about, more specifically because it is photography, such a visual medium. Did you find any visual connections? Because it's also, Russia and Israel, places that don't really look the same, not the same light, not the same architecture. Even the people look different. Did you find any visual connections?
Well, the whole book is, the edit of the book was in its roots sort of this parallel connection, finding this parallel connection. I was starting the edit of this book as I was trying to find an image from Russia comparing to one in Palestine or in Israel. As I developed the technique of the editing, as it goes on and on, I sometimes choose 2 pictures from Russia, maybe 2 pictures from Israel that have some important, let's say, idea behind them that is important for me to show. But in general, it all started as this kind of reflection. I was photographing something, as for example, pictures of soldiers, or a female soldier that I have in this book that was shot in Israel, and then I was trying to find the same thing in Russia. And I was photographing Russian military cadets, policewomen, as the picture here, as we can see. It's all connected for me. It's part of this project to find these parallels.
You left Russia to Israel when you were 10 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, yes.
What do you find now when you go back there? I mean, you've been going back and forth over the years, I assume, but how has it changed there?
Well, for me, I guess the change is very big, since when I left there I was a little kid, and now I'm coming back there with some knowledge and ideas and some historical background, and I go to the places, I revisit the places as I remember from my childhood.
Do you feel like an outsider though, or do you feel like...
Sometimes. In the subway, when you know the system, then you feel local. But when you walk the streets, then of course a bit as an outsider.
And being an outsider, does it give you a certain, an extra something when you come to document, when you come to take pictures?
Well, actually, I'm trying to be sort of an outsider in any situation I'm in, so that I'll have this sort of look from above.
Yeah.
Trying not to be too much connected, although it's really hard, I guess, because I'm taking the very personal subject into matter in this book, so it's very hard to sort of being, a bit away from it.
You do have some experience with it, being a news photographer as well. And, I got to ask about politics, because there are some pictures where you could think that there was a political undertone there. Have you approached it with a critical political thinking?
Well, for me, it's very important to try and to be as far away as possible from the political spectrum of these images. But, of course, it depends on the viewer. Yeah. Many of the viewers going to read the pictures in different matters. I'm going to give an example from Russia.
Yeah.
For example, there is a picture of Kremlin being renovated, one of the towers of Kremlin being renovated. The interesting thing for me was to photograph it, because it was a few months after the movie Mission Impossible.
Which blew up the
up half of this Kremlin thing, and then you see it being renovated, so it gives you sort of the connection of this American film blowing up the whole.
So there is politics even when you try to avoid it. Ilya, thanks so much. The book is lovely, and there'll be a chance to see it in an exhibition as well, right?
Yeah, it's going to be in February in Moscow, exhibited in a photo store library. It's called the Photo Library Gallery in Moscow.
Okay.
And then another show in March in Kiev in Ukraine.
So if you happen to be in the area. Thanks, Ilya.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, earlier this month, the third International 48mm Film Festival was held, featuring films by Jewish, Muslim, and Christian artists about the Palestinian nakba, or catastrophe. That refers, of course, to the 100,000 Palestinians that became refugees with the founding of the State of Israel in 1948. The event took place after a threat from the Ministry of Culture to defund its venue was eventually lifted. Gabriela Weinger was there and brought back this story.
48mm, the International Festival on Nakba and Return. It's an annual film festival now in its third year, and yet it's still a struggle to stage, even in its homeland.
48mm is a film festival that wants to raise awareness among Jewish Israeli public to the ongoing crimes of the Nakba and for the right of return of Palestinian refugees.
But the Tel Aviv Cinematheque is the only theatre in the country that's agreed to screen the films, created especially by Israeli and Palestinian filmmakers. Israel's culture ministry is threatening to cut government funding from the Tel Aviv Cinematheque, saying the films screened during the festival may have violated the law.
Have difficulties in persuading, decision makers in theaters to put on the stages political theater. Our Minister of Culture trying to scare people from dealing with delicate issues like the 1948 memories.
A different narrative is exactly what some viewers came to hear.
showed both sides in a painful way.
כל היום ברדיו אנחנו רק שומעים את הלהג והשקרים של המנהיגות. אז פה אתה שומע ורואה דברים אחרים.
Nonetheless, many of the seats were empty, and we were the only press present on the second day of the festival. Actress Raida Adon told me why it was so important.
المهرجان هذا كتير 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 مهم. الكل بحارب إنه ما يكون. بتخيل إنه هذا شوي بخلينا نسمع بعض. أهم شيء إنه نسمع بعض لأنه إحنا وصلنا لمرحلة إنه إحنا ما بنسمع بعض ومنخاف نحكي مع بعض ومنخاف نسمع الوجع تاع بعض. فبتخيل إنه هذا شوي بهدي من الغضب اللي جويتنا.
The past 2 months have witnessed surging violence in the region, and for some artists it is more important now than ever before to continue their work.
Times get darker, I'm more challenged. Everybody feels this pressure. We are scared that audiences will not feel free to come, will not feel that they have the spirit to come and see disputable shows. And yet I feel that this is our duty as artists to work on it. And we try to cross the borders between both sides, the Palestinians and the Jews. This is our task.
Monday night saw the world premiere of the much-anticipated Star Wars: The Force Awakens in Los Angeles. The stars of the film walked the red carpet to the first public screening of the film, surrounded by very excited fans. Let's take a look.
Stormtroopers, C-3PO and R2-D2 close behind, and tight security for a who's who of A-list stars. John Boyega starring in the lead role of Finn.
The best part being here is coming in and meeting with the fans.
Plus Harrison Ford, George Lucas, and a thumbs up and a wave from Steven Spielberg. All hitting the red carpet for a highly anticipated film people know very little about.
It is going to live up to the hype.
I was like 4 years old when my dad first showed it to me, and I've always loved it.
This movie brings back the nostalgic characters. That's what we're all excited to see.
The Force Awakens will open later this week on over 4,000 screens across the country. Back in 1977, at the start of the franchise, Star Wars opened in less than 50 theaters. No red carpet premiere. The director, George Lucas, was so sure it would flop, he was getting away from it all, vacationing in Hawaii.
Chewie, we're home.
Back then, Harrison Ford says when he first played the role of Han Solo, he could not have imagined the success Star Wars would have now.
I'm really excited to get this movie out there for the audience and see how they feel about it.
I'm not excited at all. Daniel Campos is already here in the studio. Was that believable? Did you think that I am not excited, or does it show?
It was believable.
Oh, okay. I'm a better actor than I thought. Daniel, you're taking us to Mexico.
Yeah, we're going to the state of Oaxaca. It's quite interesting. The year hasn't ended yet, and we have two big disputes, big international brands who have humiliated or offended the Mixe people, or the Mixe ethnic group. Let's start out with the Coca-Cola commercial, which is no longer on air. Coca-Cola already issued an apology very recently. Let's have a look why. Why was it so offensive towards the Mixe?
I'm sorry to say, but I'm afraid I'll need an explanation here.
It's basically, from the beginning, it's the upper class of Mexico, which is usually white skin, bringing happiness to the aborigines or the indigenous people. It was Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola's happiness. It's been interpreted as a neo-imperialist or capitalist, statement. Very controversial.
You personally, when you first saw this commercial, did it cross your mind, or only when somebody?
Look, it's something that came through my mind is this, which is usually in Mexican TV, even when you watch telenovelas. The upper white class people are portrayed differently than the aborigines or the indigenous people are always seen as sad people or people who work as maids or servants. Yeah. I did feel like there was an undertone.
Okay, all right. So Coca-Cola already apologized. What's the second controversy?
It's a very big controversy. Isabelle Marant, a French designer, for her fashion brand, she pretty much copied, we can say, the embroidered technique or designs of also the Mixe people in Oaxaca. Mm-hmm. And it's a big story right now. I mean, basically, people are angry because she's not hiring the people from the village to do the patterns.
Yeah, she's just
sends them to be made in China or Indonesia.
Well, thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thank you at home for watching as well. We'll be back tomorrow with another show. Till then, think about it. Was it offensive to the Mixe people or not? I'll see you all again tomorrow.